Mr President, my question is to the Minister for Health and Wellbeing regarding the COVID Safe app, and it is simply what state requirements through either the Parliament or other delegated legislation will be required that this app be able to be implemented in South Australia, and how many South Australians have downloaded it?
Minister for Health and Wellbeing.
Well, in relation to the honourable member's last question, I can confidently say one has, and that's me. I'm strongly encouraging South Australians to sign up for the COVID Safe app because it will help our public health clinicians to trace cases. It's one thing to test, but once you've found a case, you need to be able to find out who they've come into contact with. In terms of the COVID Safe app and engaging the state officials, the Commonwealth has made it very clear that the only people who can use the data are state officials. And to facilitate that, there was an agreement that each state and territory bilaterally had to sign with the Commonwealth. My understanding, and I'll come back to you if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that we signed our agreement at the end of last week. It might have been early this, but we are signed up, which now means that South Australian public health officers will be able to get access to the information. My understanding is the Commonwealth Parliament will be considering legislation this week, but I expect all of the commitments of the Commonwealth in relation to privacy will be reflected in either legislation that's put into place or legislation that's in place. I'm advised that the proposal was subject to a privacy impact statement, which was prepared in consultation with the Australian Privacy Commissioner, and it will be published. And I'm confident that the Commonwealth will be vigorous in complying with privacy, because I think that the confidence of the public in this app will be crucial. And in that sense, I'd remind people that the app is deletable. If you delete the app, the data associated with it is also destroyed. And in that context, any suggestion that this app is being misused, I think, would lead to a significant withdrawal, which would completely undermine the public health effort. So certainly, to the extent that to the extent that's within my capacity, I will certainly be protecting the privacy of the app.
Supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. I'm not sure that the Minister understood my question. Is it actually possible for the COVID Safe app to be used if you yourself were to test positive to trace your contacts? Right now, can we use it?
Minister for Health and Wellbeing.
Well, my understanding is that that the information can't be used unless the person who's been identified.
Ms Franks, Minister can answer your first supplementary. If you have another one, perhaps you could frame that.
Yeah, well, my understanding is that if I, as a user, don't consent to my data being downloaded, then it won't be downloaded. Now, that's a policy decision of the Commonwealth. I think that does raise issues, because, with all due respect, I think the Honourable Mr Hood might like to know that I'm COVID positive, even if I don't choose to tell him. Similar issues come up in all sorts of infectious diseases situations, but that's a policy decision the Commonwealth's made, and my understanding is that if I'm the subject of the positive test, I need to, and I'm a user of COVID Safe, that's two conditions precedent, I can, having consented to using COVID Safe, I can not consent to my data being used to contact others. That is my understanding of the Commonwealth framework.
Further supplementary.
Can the Minister rule out that no further legislation is required to ensure that public health officials in this state can actually access and use to trace the COVID Safe app data if somebody does give their permission? My understanding as of last Thursday was that there needed to be further work beyond the bilateral agreement that may indeed necessitate legislation in the State Parliament. If you can rule out that we will need that legislation, that would be most helpful.
Minister for Health and Wellbeing.
Well, to be frank, I feel duty-bound to go back and make inquiries if there is a concern that we might need legislation. But I certainly do not recall any advice being given to me that we need to have complementary state legislation. Well, to stop and reflect, my understanding is that we are a state that does not have a legislated right to privacy, so why would we need to modify it to accommodate the app?
The Honourable Mr No.